Let's find a seat. Oh, just settling in so that the spine can get nice and tall. Try to find something that feels nice and comfortable. Let the eyes close if that feels comfortable for you. So there's this very poor, struggling shepherd out in the middle of a field. And he's just set up this little makeshift tarp like shelter structure. When across the field, he sees someone approaching. This is a remarkably atypical experience. Let the shoulders soften down away from the ears. Try to emphasize and experience the last 10% of your exhale in a way that allows your body to deeply soften. The next time that you exhale, let's allow our chin to tuck down into our sternum. And as the chin tucks down into the sternum, whether you have the eyes open or closed, my preference would be eyes closed, but totally up to you. We're going to send our direction of our vision down, like you're trying to look through the center of your sternum. So if the eyes are closed, we're just tilting the eyes down. If you have the eyes open, you can maybe physically see the sternum. And then we'll inhale and bring our head back to neutral. Let the eyes just relax. And then let's exhale and let the chin come back down to the sternum. This time we're going to send the direction of the field of vision, whether we're seeing with eyes open or closed, up, like you're trying to look through the center of your forehead. And we'll relax back to neutral and let the eyes relax. Next time that you inhale, let's lift our chin towards the ceiling or sky. And we'll let the eyes go up towards the center of the forehead. And let's relax back to neutral and soften the eyes. And with the next inhale, we'll lift the chin towards the ceiling or sky. And this time we're going to try to gaze down towards our nose, whether the eyes are open or closed. The direction of the eyes is towards the nose. And we'll relax back to neutral. Let the eyes relax. Once again, let the shoulders soften down away from the ears. Let's be at ease as we allow the eyes to open if they are closed and receive some light. We'll extend our legs out in front of us. Just extending and experiencing staff for a moment. And then let's bend the knees. Let the bottoms of the feet come onto the mat. And here we're just going to clasp something that feels comfortable. So this could be the outer edge of the feet. It could be the ankles. It could be the shins. It could be the hamstrings. We just want to clasp on something that feels comfortable. And with an exhale, let's push our sternum forward and lift our chin. And with an inhale, let's round our back and tuck our chin. Exhale, we're going to let the sternum go forward, the chin lift. And inhale, we're going to let the spine round, chin tuck. Exhale, we're going forward. And inhale, we're going backward. And let's return to neutral. And now we're going to reverse the way that our breath and movement are corresponding. So with an exhale, we're going to allow the spine to round back and the chin to tuck. And with an inhale, the sternum's going to go forward and the chin's going to lift. This is generally a more natural way that our breath and body integrate. And exhale, we'll round back, chin tucks. Inhale, sternum forward, chin lifts. And we'll relax back to neutral and extend our legs down the mat. Let's grab our props. So a couple of blankets or towels and a bolster or pillow. Now let's have all of them handy. Just folding the blankets or towels from a shelf-like fold to a hot dog fold. And then having your blanket or bolster, or excuse me, your pillow or bolster handy. And we're going to find a forward fold. And the props here are just going to allow for a softening of this fold so that you could stack and rest. If a traditional forward fold is the most restful place for you, then a traditional non-propped forward fold works just as well. We're really thinking about finding softness here in a forward fold, and that really is it. Nothing else other than softness is our goal. And so this shepherd will sometimes spend months out in the fields without seeing another human. And so seeing another human kind of coming across the field at a pretty rapid pace is a little bit unnerving. He starts kind of shuffling through his bag where he has his paperwork. He's assuming this is going to be some type of a property dispute. But it turns out to be the opposite of a property dispute. This courier arrives and hands this shepherd a letter. And unbeknownst to the shepherd, he is the beneficiary of a very wealthy benefactor. And he is inheriting a huge estate. On what amounts to the other side of the world, but is the other side of this country. And this estate that he is inheriting is in a location that the shepherd has never heard of. It's far enough away that shepherd's never heard of. But he sees from the documentation it's worth a great deal. And so upon receiving this news, he begins to research this family lineage, this estate itself, and the geographical location where this estate is. One problem is the shepherd has inherited great resources, but has very limited resources to do this research. He ends up buying a map with what essentially amounts to his total net worth before this inheritance. And he begins studying this map on how he can plot a course to this new property he's inherited. Give ourselves 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll slowly walk ourselves up towards seat. Let's take our props here and we're going to maintain or utilize two blanket or towels folded hot dog style. The first of those is going to come across the top of our mat, across the width of the mat. And the second is going to run the length of our spine. If you know that your spine is pretty open and you want to take this spine blanket and roll that so that you get a little more depth here, you're welcome to do this. But just know that this may not be right for everybody. Tailbone is going to bump up against the bottom of that blanket fold or roll, and then we're going to lower ourselves down. The top blanket is just here depending on your torso geometry to provide some head support, so you can adjust that however feels fit. And then the real key is that the blanket that's underneath our spine, we want that to feel stable. We want that to feel like it's offering balanced stability on both edges of the body. And we want our shoulders to be able to relax. So the hands here can be out towards cactus or T or a combo of those. They can be down by our sides. I'm going to strongly urge a palms up placement just so that we get some external expansion of the shoulder capsules in this externally rotated direction anyway. And then we're just going to slow down the way we're respirating here. Think of this as a mostly passive shoulder girdle expansion with some lateral edge expansion or some pulling off that spinal column into the posterior soft tissue. So this The shepherd takes this map home and he unfolds it, lays it out on the table, and he starts thinking about plotting a chart or a path to this property he's inherited. And he's just kind of working his way out, kind of dotting possible lines. He comes across this huge boundary, a boundary so long that the bottom and top of it extend off the map, and so wide that it must take up over a third of the map's total space. On this boundary has a very large, very clear naming convention. Valley of Thorns. And upon reading this, the shepherd's heart sinks a little bit. He's heard stories of the Valley of Thorns. I didn't know exactly where it was. He knew it was a long ways away, but he's also knows it's a treacherous, dangerous, painful place. And so he kind of starts scanning up and down the edges of this Valley of Thorns for any areas where it might be a little bit less wide, any areas that might be a little bit easier to cross. And there aren't any. Like anywhere where the boundary dips in on one side, it extends out on the other. And he thinks, well, it goes off the map. I wonder how far it goes in either direction. But the reality is he doesn't have enough money to buy another map, let alone 2, 3, 4, 5. Who knows how big this Valley of Thorns is? So he decides he's going to need to prepare himself for the treachery of crossing this expanse. Just check in on your hands again. Think about the external rotation of your shoulders. Think about how you can get more space across the shoulder girdle. How you can relax so that the sternum lift offers expansiveness at these corner edges of the body. So knowing that all of the rumors he's heard about this valley, that the thorns will tear through your clothing and poke through your boots, he goes out and he buys the sturdiest boots he can and the the thickest pants and clothing he can, even though it's the middle of the summer. He sells off all of his sheep. And with the proceeds, he's able to buy what he believes is the best possible gear he can to cross this valley of thorns. And he starts walking around in the heat of summer in these pants and these boots and this thick wool shirt. And it's hot. But after a couple weeks, kind of settles into the discomfort of the heat. And he starts imagining what it will feel like to cross this thorned valley in this gear. And he goes out and he's walking through fields, and he realizes that he's not getting the sensation that he wants because he's not feeling the pain of thorns poking through his boots, tearing through his clothes. So one day on one of his walks, he stops at this little pile of rocks and he looks for the sharpest rocks he can. And he grabs four and he puts two in each boot. And then he gently puts his foot into the boots and he feels the sharp edges of these rocks pressing against the plantar fascial tissue of his feet. And he takes a small step and the searing pain just shoots through his foot up his leg. When it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our knees into a bent position. If they're not already there, we'll let the knees fall to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. And we're going to pull that prop out from underneath us. And we'll want this to be hot dog shape. So if you have it in another shape, let's get back into hot dog shape. We'll do the stack the blankets or towels. And we'll potentially add our bolster or pillow. It's going to depend on what your third prop is. We're going to use this like a block for a little elevated and supported bridge. So just bringing the prop stack next to your hips and determining what order will be ideal for you is kind of the mechanism here, depending on what props you're using. We'll lift our belt line high enough to slide our props underneath our sacrum, and then just release the sacrum onto the props. Let the palms face up once again. Down towards your hips is probably ideal. And thinking about getting the tops of the shoulders away from the ears to help elongate the cervical spine might be a nice opportunity here. Once you're settled into your shape, and no rush to make that true, but once you are settled into your shape, you can keep the knees bent. You could theoretically bring the bottoms of the feet together. You could extend the legs depending on what your spine is feeling like. And ensuring that the structure you've created has enough stability to support those shapes. And then we'll just ease our way into this supported bridge. Goal here is a little bit different. I like to relax the torso in a way that we get the maximum expansion between the sacrum and the start of the lumbar spine. So for me, it's about being at ease in the spine so that the gravitational force load on the elevated portion of the torso gets to work on creating that expansion. But this again is going to be more lumbar hip focused. So we're less shoulder focused here. More mid torso expansive. So the shepherd starts to slowly walk around these fields now with these two rocks in each shoe, just mimicking the sensation of thorns pressing into the foot. And the sensation never goes away. After some amount of time, the shepherd starts to overcome the pain in this preparation for this Valley of Thorns. But the sensation is always there. And the sharpness of these stones is always there. And so, after some time of walking around with just the stones and the shoes, the shepherd starts to think about how the bramble and other branches of thorns in this Valley of Thorns are going to feel on his legs. And so he goes around and he starts collecting cuttings of wild raspberry and rose bushes. And he gathers these bundles of these thorny branches. And he takes a string and he ties the bottom of his pants around his ankles tight. And then he fills his pants with these branches. And now he walks around with these stones jabbing into his feet and these raspberry thorns and rose thorns poking into his legs with every step. And every day he gets up, he does this, and he walks through the fields around his home, preparing himself to cross this Valley of Thorns so that he can get to the inheritance he has on the other side. Give ourselves 60 more seconds here. Just at ease. Feeling the mid body expansion. When it feels appropriate for you, we're going to lift our belt line high enough that we can slide our props down so that this stack can end up underneath our knees, so that the sacrum can come down onto the mat and the legs can extend and be supported here. However that works out for you, we just want some leg support, and we want the sacrum and lumbar to be neutral against the mat. And ideally, this is going to feel really soft, good, and restorative. Like we just landed the spine here. Arms can be a cactus T or by your sides. So if you can feel back into the last 10% of each exhale, really pay attention to the last 10% of each exhale, connect to that. Just soften against the neutrality of our mat. After a few weeks of these long, drawn out days of feeling the stones in the feet and the thorns in the legs, the shepherd adds what he thinks will be the final thing necessary to prepare himself. And he does the thorns now in the shirt in the same way. He ties the string around the cuff of his sleeves, and he just packs his sleeves full of these thorny branches. And he goes out and he walks around all day, just every agonizing step, every agonizing twist, every agonizing movement, he tells himself is necessary, worthwhile, and will be impactful for his journey. We're going to add a little sequence in our breath. So we're already paying attention to the last 10%. We're already feeling the lungs fully empty. At the end of each full empty, we're going to just pause. It's truly, it's holding your breath, right? But don't think of it as like a hold. Think of it as a pause. Like you're stopping time. And just stay within that pause. Each time you exhale, lungs are empty, just staying with that pause for as long as feels comfortable before you draw the breath back in. And that's it. We're just going to experience the last 10% of our breath leaving our body. When the last percent has left, we're pausing. We're experiencing that paused moment of time, and then we're drawing our breath back in. Remembering to experience that full empty, how you're getting there, and then just encapsulating that empty without putting any pressure anywhere before you draw your breath back in. Give ourselves about 90 more seconds here. A couple weeks later, this shepherd's body is scabbed over. His feet are constantly aching. And he is starting to prepare for the cross-country trek that he's going to make, the crossing of this huge valley of thorns. And so he stops, he ceases the training missions so that his wounds can heal. And slowly they start to. When it feels appropriate for you, let's just return our respiration to a traditional cyclical experience. We'll pull the props out from underneath our legs. Let the legs extend down the mat completely for just a moment so that you feel full body neutrality. As these wounds heal on the shepherd's arms and legs, the scar tissue is thick. And so thick that he starts to lose range of motion in his arms and legs. And yet he's looking at this and he's thinking, the thickness of this scar tissue is going to come in incredibly handy. It will be incredibly valuable as I cross this valley of thorns. And so as he's healing, even as he's losing mobility, he's feeling accomplished. What he set out to do, he has done, has made himself ready. When it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our knees into a bent position if they're not already. And then let's let the knees start to move through some rotations, in and out of twists. Feel the hips as you're moving. Really think about the space where the sacrum and the lumbar spine meet as you're twisting here. See if you can find that little bit of additional room you've created. Next time the knees fall to the left, let's let them settle there. So eventually everything's healed, scarring is done, range of motion is limited, bags are packed. Shepherd is ready to set out on this track to his new home. He gets up and he starts to move, and the movement is slow and mechanical. The stones are out of the boots, the thorns are out of the pants, the thorns are out of the shirts. But his body has changed. And so the way that he used to be able to move is no longer there. But he knows that he did what was needed to prepare for this future obstacle that is now an impending bit of doom in front of him. He grabs his map and sets off. Because of his limited range of motion, things take longer than he expected. But it's worth it because there's this treacherous cross he's going to have to cross, and that's the thing that matters. Last 30 seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. It feels appropriate for you. We'll bring our knees back up to neutral and let the knees fall over to the second side, the right side. As he inches closer and closer to the Valley of Thorns, he recognizes within himself he's becoming more and more anxious about this crossing, hoping that he prepared enough, that the scar tissue on his arms will be thick enough, scar tissue on his legs will be thick enough that the pain he's put his feet through will be enough, that he'll be strong enough to cross this valley. And that anxiety is growing exponentially the closer he gets. And it feels appropriate for you as it feels appropriate for you. That's bring our knees back to neutral. And we'll just ask ourselves here if there's anything that we can benefit from prior to Shavasana. If there are any tweaks, adjustments, movements we could offer. If there's any last bits of energy we need to get out of ourselves. And then eventually, when you're ready, we'll make our way into a shape where we can appreciate some stillness. Eventually, the shepherd on the map is essentially at the border of this Valley of Thorns. And he's working his way up a hill, and he sees a sign that says, Valley of Thorns, 10 meters ahead. And so he's cresting up on this hill, and as he's about to crest the hill, he closes his eyes and he takes a deep breath. And he's trying to prepare his body for the treachery he's about to see, the treachery he needs to cross. Just drift into our version of stillness, of ease, of softness here when you are ready. The eyes closed. He takes a step forward, and his foot presses into something soft. He opens his eyes and he sees this green field. His mouth falls open, and he hears a crunch to the right of him. And he whips his head to the right, and there's a woman standing there with a smile on her face. And she says, "You must be wondering about the name." We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. Into our wrists and our ankles. He takes another step forward, and his foot sinks into this soft moss. And he's looking out over this field of this like green valley covered in this moss. Movement into your elbows, your knees, your shoulders, and your hips, your neck, your head, your jaw, your eyes, your tongue. Eventually, the whole body moves, and we'll utilize that movement to transition ourselves back into a seat. The woman says, "What you're looking at here is owned by the Thorn family, and it's the most beautiful piece of land anywhere." Let the spine get tall, breath get fluid, eyes close. And with your next inhale, let's bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that preparing for the future is one thing, but suffering a future that has not yet happened is quite another? And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you. I'll be back tomorrow night to move. Have a beautiful rest of your Sunday. And thanks for being you.